Hi, my name's Claire Winslow. I'm a printmaker and artist in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm really excited to teach you the introduction to gel printing with Botanicals today. It's a super easy, accessible way to jump in and make art with only a few minutes, and you don't need a lot of complex materials or techniques. So I'm going to show you what you need. Let's get started. These are the materials that you'll need to get started with botanical prints. Starting from the left, we have your brayer. I believe this is a 4-inch brayer, but you could use a 3-inch brayer too, or a smaller one. This is a gel plate. There are different brand names for these. This one is made by Speedball, but any brand is fine. This is a 5x5, which is a small one. You might also use a 6x6 or 8x10, which I also like. And then these are your paints. They're just basic acrylics by Liquitex. This does not mean it's the only brand out there, but it's a good one. It doesn't cost that much. Another brand is Amsterdam. This is also a good one. These are pretty large tubes, and I have these large ones because I use so much paint for teaching. But if you can find a small tube and you're just getting started and you don't want to get big tubes of paint, that's fine too. I'm just showing these large ones for demonstration purposes. In the materials list, I also suggested a set of small tubes of acrylics, and that is a good idea if you plan to do more gel printing in future. It's more economical to get a set rather than start with a few tubes. And besides paint, we'll need, going clockwise here, I like to have, this is not a necessity, but I like to have a spray bottle where I put water, and sometimes I'll add a little bit of dish soap to the water, and that helps me clean the plate. So this is your new gel plate. As you can see, it's still in the original packaging. So I'm going to open it up. It's one of these clamshell packages. And I want to keep the package, so do not throw this away, because one of the keys to keeping your plate lasting a long time is to store it properly. So you want to keep your original packaging. It also comes with this kind of sheet with cleaning directions, etc. You can keep that if you want. And it's also going to have a thin sheet of plastic which you can peel off and keep also. So I'm going to peel this off. Some people use that as a base for printing, which is an option. You can put the plastic down like that and print. But whatever you do, save those. Save all the packing materials, because for storage purposes, you want to keep your gel plate clean and dry and stored. I like to store mine flat. Some people store them vertically, but I think storing them flat is good. So as you can see, it starts out totally clear when you first buy one of these. And over time, as you print, it'll start to get a tint of a color. Like I have another plate which is kind of blue. But that's okay. It doesn't affect your printing at all, even if it picks up. What I have here is, I like to make a kind of base for my plate. Last time we said you could use one of these, which came in the original package, and you could put that down to print on. But I prefer to use a piece of the same size paper that I'm printing with, which is right now 8.5 by 11. And then what I do is I take my masking tape, take a couple pieces of that, and I tape it down to my surface. And so that's so that it doesn't move around. And then I'm going to take my plate and I'm going to estimate, ballpark, that that's around the center. I'm not doing a lot of super careful registering today, just trying to get you up and running. So here you have the plate roughly centered. You can make adjustments on your paper, but the idea is once that plate is down, it doesn't slide around, and that's really important. You don't want your plate sliding around. It's made not to slide, but your surface should be stable too. Let's start making our first print. So I have my plate set up on my sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, which is the same size as the prints that I'm going to make. Even though the plate is smaller, that's okay. And I have my Botanicals, flat leaves from the garden. I might have more than one here. And I'm going to start with one color. So this, you can use any colors you like. I recommend keeping your palette limited. So I'm starting with this Naples yellow. And I've got my brayer. And I'm going to apply the paint directly to the plate by just squeezing out. Not very much, maybe a small pea-sized amount of paint. And I'm going to push my brayer up and down. I'm going to make contact with the plate, run it across the paint, and then lift it off the edge. And you can see I got a little bit on my paper around the plate, but that's okay. So just do that a few times. Don't do too many times because you'll start lifting off the paint. And then you just want to lay your botanical down here. And now I'm going to match up my top page with my lower page. And then I'm going to anchor it with one hand and then simply rub. You don't need a lot of pressure for this. And then you can lift off your leaf. And you'll notice you've got a print here on the left, but you've also got paint still on the plate. And it has interesting markings. So let's make a print from that. So all you have to do before the paint is dry is bring another sheet of paper. Let's see if we got everything. You can always take a peek first, but since this is acrylic, it's going to dry fast, so I'm not going to be too slow about that. And there you have your second print, which is actually an impression of your leaf. Although this can be a finished print, you might want to print on it again later. So now I'm going to let these dry. So we have our first color prints, and they're dry, and they're ready for another color. You can always leave the print as is, just with one color if you like it that way, and make a bunch more, or you could add a second color. Let's try that. One of the things about using more than one color is you want to take your first print and be able to line it up with your plate to print a second color. So sometimes I get confused if I have a stack of prints over there about which side is up. So I've marked an arrow indicating that this is the top side of the paper. So that way I know when I put more paint here and I come to print a second time, I know it's this way, not that way. If I print that way, this will not line up on our plate, and we're going to do exactly the same thing as we did last time. We don't want too much paint though, just a pea-sized for a 5 by 5 plate. It doesn't look like a lot, but that's enough. This is a pretty transparent red. You can see, because you can see behind the plate. Let's take our same leaf, only put it in a different place. And we're going to take our print, the right side up. We matched it up with the bottom sheet. Well, almost. I wasn't quite perfect there about matching it up. So the registration, as we call it, is going to be a little bit off. That's a nice imprint. Let's see if we can get that to print on our first print. You want to catch it before it dries too quickly. There you have a lovely overlapping of two delicate print images. Here you have your two prints with two colors each. We started with yellow and then we moved to red, and there's our first print, and there's our second print that has the details of the stem veins in the leaf, and it's quite lovely where the two colors overlap. You could stop here, or you could add a third color. Let's try that. Rolling out kind of thinly. You don't want too much paint on the plate. Once again, we could use either our same leaf that we used before. You can see it's got a little paint on there, or we could use a different one. But I recommend changing the placement of the leaf. We'll try printing on here. See if we can line up the sheet, top sheet with the bottom sheet. And there you have it, a 3-color print. Now I've decided I'm going to stop printing for the afternoon. I'm going to use my spray bottle and apply some soapy water or just plain water to my plate. And if it doesn't come off, if there's some dried paint, I can use gently the scrubby side. I could even put a little bit of soap directly on here, which helps. Yeah, that helps quite a bit. You just have to be careful with your plate. You want to keep it in good shape, so you don't want to scrub it too much or get anything sharp. You don't want to poke it with something sharp, but that's about the only rule that there is for these gel plates. Just keep them away from sharp things. Oh, and another rule is just keep it away from extreme changes of temperature. Don't leave it in your hot car or that kind of thing. So there's soapy water on here, so I want to get that off. So I'll rinse my sponge so it's not quite so soapy. Get it as clean as you can. Some artists like to leave paint on their plate and it doesn't bother them, but I like to try to get my plate pretty clean. I'm going to dry it before I put it away. And I'll take up my printing area here, throw that away, and I'll make sure that that's dry before I put it back into my case. And once that's dry, I'll store it with its original plastic piece. I'll put the plate right on top there, put the other plastic piece here. And that keeps it dry and free from damage. And I'll close up my clamshell and then keep this stored in a flat, dry location. For cleaning your brayer, you can do it a couple of ways. You could spray it, but with your soapy water, brayer a scrap piece of paper to get some of the excess off. You can use your sponge like this. You can even roll the brayer across the paper like that as you're sponging. So different ways to get it clean. And take good care of your brayer too. So you want to store this either, some people hang it up, but I store them flat. But you want to store them like this, not like this. Store them like that, they'll last a long time. I'd like to talk about what to do if your paint dries too fast and most of the image stays on your plate and you can't get it onto your paper. Well, you might need to add something to your acrylic just to slow down the drying time a little bit. There's many things that are possible. I happen to have golden open acrylic medium, but any type of acrylic medium will work and you don't need very much, just a couple of drops. So let's see how that works. We're going to add our paint as usual to the plate, and then we're going to mix in just a drop of the acrylic medium and then roll it out as usual. You might have to roll it different directions because you kind of want to mix it together so the medium blends in to the paint. And that should slow you down just a little bit so you have more time. Let's see if that worked. Sometimes you might be printing and then you get called away and you come back a few hours later and realize, oh no, I didn't clean my plate off. And rather than panic, you can either use your scrubby sponge as I demonstrated before, or there's something else you can do, which means you get to use the paint that's already on the plate, even though it's dry. Normally you would need it to still be wet in order to make a print, but there is something you can do. You can see I'm touching it, it's dry. And it means having some white or light colored paint and your brayer and a new sheet of paper. So what you're going to do is apply a small, whoops, oh that sometimes happens, a small amount of white paint. Remember, a pea-sized amount for a 5x5 plate or 6x6, a little bit more for a larger plate. You're going to apply a thin amount of white paint to the dried plate. So again, there's a dried image on there. I'm not going to worry about scuff marks or any of that. This is still wet. I'm now going to take my paper and I'm going to use a little more pressure than usual, because what I want to have happen is that I want the white paint to lift up the old dry paint. So I'm going to rub that till I get my hand everywhere. I think I'll wait a few seconds. Let's wait 10 seconds. I'm not very patient, but I think I can do it. And then I could take a peek in one corner to see if something's happening. It's going to be a little sticky, but you can pull it up. There you have it. So you have pulled up the remainder of the paint that was there before, and it makes a kind of a light ghost print, which you could either use as is, or you could print some more layers on that. I hope you had fun printing with Botanicals today. I find gel printing, especially with Botanicals, to be very relaxing and meditative. And once I start printing, I can usually go for hours. But if you don't have hours, if you only have 45 minutes, that's perfectly fine too. Anyway, I hope you enjoy.